Hey. Hello everybody and welcome to today's talk about mastering seasonality in Odoo, optimizing pre-orders and streamlining reorders. The agenda for today's talk is I'm going to start off with a short introduction about myself so all of you know who you're talking to today. Then I would quickly present the challenge that a typical fashion company will face in its business, the solution that we can provide with the help of Odoo, the impact that solving this issue can bring, and the value that we can raise by offering all of these solutions. So, as I said, starting off with a quick introduction by myself. Hi, I'm Mike Schultz. I'm a managing partner and founder of Much Consulting, and also here in this expo basically the entire time. You can find me in the booth just across here. It's the big orange one with the good coffee machine. A little bit about Much Consulting. We are an Odoo Gold partner. We have a strong consulting focus and an approach that focuses a lot on process automation, which, as we will also see throughout this talk, lends itself perfectly to the entire e-commerce industry. Overall, we have roughly 80 engineers and consultants processing projects in German and in English, and we have over 200 Odoos implemented, mostly in the EU, but also in the US. And here you can just see a small collection of the flags that we've worked in so far. Yeah, but so much about Much Consulting. Let's now jump right into the topic. If you want to see the slides that we are showing today, please just scan this QR code. You will then be directed to a small form with which you can just fill out so we can send you all information. And should we at the end have some questions that we cannot answer during the Q&A, you're of course more than welcome to join us at our booth or just contact us through this form. We're more than happy to help everyone out. I would give you maybe like 5 more seconds so everyone has the chance to scan. Okay, looks like everyone's done. Then let's jump into it. Yep. So a seasonal business model results in very special requirements for the ERP system. But maybe before we jump too much into that, let's maybe just take a short time to actually discuss what we mean when today we talk about seasonality. So usually, and this is something that everyone who has been in touch with the fashion industry in any sense would know, there's like 2 big seasons per year spanning 6 months each, usually one going from January to June and one going from July to December of that year. And this is the season where I, as a B2C end customer, can actually go in shops, go online, and buy the fashion that is in the season. What people who do not work in the industry may not realize is that actually a season in its core is actually a 1-year process, as we can see here in the season 2 example of this year. Why is it a 1-year process? Well, if I want to bring out a new item of clothing for the July to December season of that year, usually I will offer to all my distributors a pre-order phase spanning roughly from January till March to pre-order all these fashion items, these different things that I have, so that then when the season actually starts in July, all the stores are already fully stocked up. This also means that, for example, maybe I have an all-year product, which can be sold in the January to June and the July to December season, that maybe I also sell the same product for 2 very separate seasons, and maybe also for 2 completely separate prices. Let's say I saw last year I was a little bit too competitive with my pricing and everything was a little bit too cheap, and for inflation adjustment I want to raise the prices, which means that theoretically in February I could offer one and the same product as a pre-order for the later season in the year with a higher or different price point than I could offer it as a reorder, so a restocking for the current season. Again, how is then the flow going? During January to March, all the distributors will place their pre-orders, decide what they want to stock in their stores or their online shops, and that is then aggregated up, and based on these aggregation of pre-orders, I can then make my decision on what my catalog should actually be. Maybe if something is not really picked up or doesn't really find a lot of success in this pre-order phase. I might also drop it out during the season. These decisions I have to make. Before then, in June really comes the busy season for my warehouse, because this is when I will probably do 80% of my shipping for that season. Is when I send out everything to pre-stock all the stores or the locations for the upcoming season. That then goes into the next season of selling. Exactly, and this just goes basically on and on. And with these seasonalities, we have a few also very special challenges that maybe I wouldn't have in a normal business model. So first off, I really have to manage my product availability for sales. What do we mean by that? Well, if I say this is now a product that is only available for season 2, I would have a 3-month period of time from January to March where I would want to offer this product up in the context of pre-orders for filling the stock before the season actually starts, and then again from July to December in the reorder phase when people might want to restock on things, and in between from April to June I would probably not sell this product at all. I have to manage prices based on seasons instead of time frames. So if you're a little bit familiar with Odoo and how Odoo works in its standard form, usually each price would have like a date from and date to, but as I already showed earlier in this example, with the overlap of seasons and prices in general being steered by season, I cannot say what is the product price for February because it actually depends what I'm going to buy it for. And this is something very special to that. I have a very complex decision-making process for season composition. Season composition being which products do I maybe want to decide to drop from the season, which do I want to keep. Because even though maybe a product didn't find a lot of demand at first, maybe if it's the only cap, for example, that I'm offering, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my entire cap sales, whereas if it's maybe one of 5 or 10 different socks I offer, maybe it's more easy for me to drop something out if the demand hasn't been as high. And here, I really need a very solid database and data information to make informed decisions about what I should actually offer in my next season. And lastly, the outbound delivery management for the season start is really also something, because this is really a peak loading time for the entire warehouse. More or less, they have 3 months to prepare for this very extreme situation that comes twice a year, where basically most of the goods they will ship will be shipped within 1 month. As you can see now here, next to each of these challenges, we have a small little icon, like the $sign here or the thumbs up. These you will see scattered throughout the rest of this presentation. Always when we're referring back to one of these 4 challenges that will be present throughout this presentation, it will be denoted by this small icon. So maybe just keep an eye out for those throughout the rest of this presentation. Now we heard a little bit about what we have to do. Now let's take a look at how it was before Odoo was introduced. So basically the bad days, before we can then come to the nice solution, how it looked afterwards. So we start off with it feels nearly prehistoric physical order sheet, where either as a PDF or even as a letter to the distributors, order sheets were sent out, which was, you can basically imagine as like 20, 30 pages of double printed SKU numbers with quantities where you could pencil in how much you would actually want to sell. These physical order sheets you then got back and had to input into your huge pre-order Excel that you had, where next to the minimum order quantities from your manufacturers, you could then try to fiddle together how a season could look. So maybe just again to reiterating that, usually also if you want to offer an item of clothing, for example, if you want to order from your manufacturer, there will be a certain minimal order threshold you will have to meet, and basically matching the order sheets and seeing where did I meet my thresholds or not, or where can I maybe still over order a little bit in hopes that then through the reordering phase I will get rid of all my stock. This is basically what we did here. After I then consulted also my separate managed margin sheet, I would then get into the catalog selection, because maybe, even though I'm really quite far behind my minimum order quantity, if I have a really high margin on this product, I may still choose to sell it anyways, just for those 10 units that will actually go out. This would then again end in a PDF form, which I would then via email send to my manufacturer to negotiate final prices. Maybe see if I could also order 500 units less if I asked really, really nicely, which I then had to input manually into the shipping schedule, so that I then knew when actually all the inbound deliveries were to be expected, and what I could then offer for my outbound deliveries to my distributors. So if we look in the core challenges that we discussed now, and basically the main things that we wanted to reach here, there were 5 core Odoo apps that could do like 95% of the heavy lifting here. Obviously also for this client we introduced other apps such as HR, employees, timesheets, time off. That's not really the point of this talk, so I'm just going to skip over those for now and focus on the 5 that were actually used to solve the issue we're looking into today. First off, and probably the most obvious one, was the Odoo internal e-commerce, where actually we decided to, in the end, implement 2 separate shop systems to manage the pre-orders for the upcoming and the reorders for the current season, meaning that I would get to a landing page where I could decide, do I want to place a pre-order in those 2 periods of 3 months where I was allowed to, or do I want to have a reorder for the current season? Next, the accounting module, where all orders and purchases are accounted for and, very importantly, attributed to the correct period, since, as we saw before, sometimes there can be up to 5 months between an order being placed, maybe also a down payment being made, and me actually receiving my goods. The revenue recognition can be a little bit tricky here, and also when do I have to pay which tax for what. So really attributing everything to the correct season is a challenge that we tackled in the accounting. In the sales application, we tracked all product availabilities and the price lists, which is a topic I will come to in a little bit, and all the orders are captured and stored. Next, we have the inventory app, which accumulated the demand for upcoming orders and stock levels for the current season. Also here, basically separating a little bit the stock for the pre-orders and also already the reservations for those, so they do not diminish my current stock, obviously, for the reorders of the current season. Last but not least, we had the purchasing app, where the ordering from the suppliers based on the collective pre-order demand could be managed, and also the minimum order values, as well as maybe some price reductions for large orders, could all be managed. But now, as I already said, like, Odoo could do 95%, but obviously you don't want to go live with 95%. You want to have a 100% solution. So there were some customizations needed to really unlock the full potential of Odoo. And I would now like to quickly go over those to display what we did here. So I would say there were 4 major things we needed to do. And what you're going to see now here in the bottom are always some screenshots. This is not the actual system that was used, since for the anonymity of the client, we did not want to share real screenshots. This is just using Odoo demo data and a little bit of clicking in Studio, which can also show you just how simple and easy at the end it was. So there were no real huge customizations needed. And the first one is probably pretty intuitive and something all of you might have guessed. If we're talking this much about seasons, maybe we should have seasons in the system. So we basically added seasons as a base model, as you can see here, and it's just a centralized place where we can manage everything and all date ranges between this. This is literally a model that has 5 data points, right? It has a name, it has the pre-order start date, pre-order end date, the season start, and the season end date. That's all we have for now. Okay. However, it's a little bit boring, right? It can't do that much yet, so now we have to put it to use. How can we put this to use? Well, by assigning products to seasons. So what we did here basically is that we added to each season the possibility of a many-to-many selection point, where we can now say, okay, which products do I actually want to sell within the season? thinking back to catalog selection as well, initially we would put all products in here that we could consider actually selling. If at some point we would choose to drop one product from this season, we can simply delete it from the list and it will disappear from all shop fronts. And actually also this assigning a product to a season also then automatically influenced the visibility in both of the e-commerce shops that we set up. And then, and this is a little bit of a speciality that maybe doesn't provide to anyone, but still was cool and interesting enough that I thought, you know what, I should mention it here. What we then also did was we gave the opportunity to limit the selling of certain products to specific contacts based on the login. Why would I want to do that? Well, in this case, we had a few specialty products that were maybe also developed in cooperation with certain distributors, where then these distributors had the sole rights to actually distribute and sell this to the end clients. So we had to restrict these special makeup products. So we could say, okay, only these companies are allowed to sell it. If you log in to the online shop with a different account, you will see every product that has no allowed company, or you're in. Okay, that's the second one. The third one is something that I also already briefly hinted at, is make the price lists depend on the newly created seasons instead of the usual start-end date logic as you would have for a price list or a price list item. So what we basically did here is we linked the season into it, we hid more or less the start-end date, and what we just said is whenever a sale belongs to a certain season here, the price list for that season will be taken, independently if we're currently in the pre-order or in the reordering phase, and based on the shop, we will know which price list to use. Lastly, and this is already now a little bit, I would say, a quality of life or a next step feature, is just make everything searchable and groupable by order type and season. At the end of the day, it's very nice that I can steer all my processes, that I can make everything available, but I mean, I also want some data, right? I want to look into the things. I want to know what is actually going on, and for this, I want this information everywhere. So what we did is basically, on every sale order, every delivery, every invoice, every purchase order, you could know which season is affiliated to, and where applicable also, if this is now a reorder or a pre-order. So you can also maybe answer questions like, in last year's season, how much of my revenue did actually come through reorders and how much through pre-orders? Here in the screenshot shown below, it's shown first off here in the form view, of the sales order, or here also then in the tree or list view of the sales orders, just so I can look into it, and then use this for BI and dashboarding purposes in a later point in time. And that's already it. That's basically all the customizations that we needed to do. Some of them were a little bit harder to do than others, but mostly it was quite straightforward, I would say. And with that, we could now fully steer this process. What this did was really manage and heighten the grade of automation that we had, raising customer satisfaction while actually lowering the cost to operate this business, because we could basically improve the automation in every core process. And as I said, that's also something we generally strive to do with all our projects and everything we do, heighten the automation to make sure that we can get the best results. Next to automation, what we also had here, the self-service portal for the customers really improved the customer satisfaction, because first off, obviously, the experience of being able to go into an online shop and order my pre-orders there is way nicer than having to fill out a sheet where I have to search for ages for the right SKU. And also then, based on top of that, also the Odoo portal, so I could see all my past orders, all my past purchases, and what have you. The full reporting that I have enables efficient catalog selection, the thing that we talked about earlier, where I could now really see through the margins and the minimum order quantities and the pre-order amounts that I had, which products should make the final catalog. The automatic reordering reduces the inventory issues, because sometimes maybe one of the sales sheets was forgotten, so I didn't order enough, so I couldn't even fulfill all the pre-orders that were already made or some stuff like that, but having it all centralized in one system reduced the error rate here tremendously. And lastly, the full accounting integration enabled accurate and automated accruals, so I could book the revenues in the months they actually belong to. Excuse me. Which now brings me to the final point of this presentation, and that actually is that I want to emphasize once again that basically Odoo's core values, and I would say the things that make Odoo special, are really a perfect match with the need of any e-commerce client, not only in the fashion and seasonality business, but I would say for e-commerces overall. First off, it's easy to integrate, right? So we now here saw an example where most of the business, if not all of it, could be handled through Odoo. But maybe as an e-commerce, you have an external B2C shop. You sell over Amazon. Maybe you use a PIM to have more marketing relevant information that you don't really need in your Odoo. And all of the integration capacities that you have with Odoo really enable you to use a best of breed approach everywhere you need to go. It has a very intuitive usability, and a very modern interface, especially since Odoo 17, where they really revamped it and made huge strides in that area, I would say, which really allows the efficient usage of any user type for this program. It supports the end-to-end processes fully, so you can seamlessly steer all your core processes in one place without having to jump between systems or Excel sheets or other even more nasty things, I would say. It's very flexible in the customization. So as we saw, right, Odoo's core usually already can fix 90% of your things, but these last 10% are also, thanks to the easy customization possibilities in Odoo, easy to get to. You can grant full access to all your business partners, so if it's your distributors or actually your manufacturers through either the e-commerce interface or the Odoo portal, you can give them full access and full transparency, which just helps your system a lot. You have very good reporting and dashboarding, right? You have extensive reports to keep an overview of your very complex business. Most e-commerces have thousands of SKUs that they have to manage. They have to keep an overview, and understanding where they actually make money and what the core SKUs are is something where Odoo can really help you out a lot. It helps you automate repetitive tasks, right? So if you have, let's say, 1,000 orders a day, and maybe even also just a basket size of, let's say, 20 euros, as soon as you have to manually interact at all with an order, probably your entire margin is gone already. So really automating everything where you don't need complex decision making is key in Odoo, and with automated actions and other automation tools that we use a lot, this can be achieved to basically have a no-touch e-commerce process. And lastly, you have workflow management, so you can use custom workflows and activities to stay on top of all open to-dos, because every now and then there will be an order that needs complex decision making, there will be an over-delivery, an under-delivery, or anything else that needs your attention, and then out of the thousands of processes that you have in your system, finding the 5 that actually need your attention is very easily doable, and everyone basically can build their own to-do lists, so they're always on top of every challenge that they have to tackle that day. Perfect. That's basically already it from my side. Fortunately, my timer didn't work, so I'm not exactly sure how well on time I am or not. On the top, you can have the link again to get the slides. Otherwise, you can either type in the link or use the QR code to go to the questions and ask anything that you want. We will probably not be able to get to all of them, but once again, we are in the booth right next door, and either that or shoot us an email. We're always happy to support anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're letting some time to the people to write down the questions. We're 2 questions that are actually being written down. Some people are writing at the same time. We'll see which one is the first one to finish.
It's a race.
Actually, there's another horse coming in the race. So 4 at the same time.
This is getting exciting.
There we have the first one who finished the question. Did you do any modifications about how color versus size matrix is displaying in Odoo?
Yeah, so this is something that we really have to tackle, I would say, individually per client, because really what the best solution to this matrix is quite individual. In some cases, we just use the Odoo standard, basically having 2 attributes, multiplying them out. In other cases, it might even make sense, and actually in this case, it was that actually each color became its own product, just because they usually didn't work a lot with like the t-shirt where you have 20 colors, but it was really more like specialized gear where they had maybe 2-3 colors, and then the decision was made to just manage this based on separate product templates and not over the attribute values. We try not to customize that usually and just find a process way to it, since this does add a lot of complexity, but if really necessary, that's also something we can do.
Perfect. Yes, for sure we can combine as many attributes and values as we want in Odoo, so that's perfect. Another question would be, how can you allow to other products which are not received yet if you set up not allowed to buy with stock 0 products which are purchased?
I have to admit I did not get that question, I'm very sorry.
Let's repeat again. How can you allow to other products which are not received yet if you set up not allowed to buy with stock 0?
Okay, so this was actually handled a little bit. It was more or less one of the customizations that we also had for the pre-order shop, where we actually there basically bypassed this restriction, because on the reordering side of things, which again was its own online shop, we said, okay, it's not allowed to do that. But you can basically either by having a separate pre-order warehouse, which always just has full inventories with value 0, where you can then shift the orders from, or actually by just bypassing this rule for this specific shop is a solution that can be done. Off the top of my head, I have to admit I'm not even sure which solution we went for in the end of this.
Well, also for each company would be a different case, so we'll see.
Of course.
Thank you. We're out of time, so thank you so much for your presentation.
Thanks a lot. Again, get in touch. Let's chat. Let's have some coffee over there. Thank you all for coming. Thanks online, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.